start. We're talking about the rapture. Now, the rapture, no, the actual word is not in most of the translations of the Bible. It is in the Latin translation of the Bible as raptos, and the word literally means in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 to be caught up. So let's talk about the rapture being caught up. That's why I love this song, Caught Up. I love that song, by the way. So we're talking about this particular event. This will be that earth-shaking event that is yet to come. Are we poised for it? Yes. Is it going to happen? Is it overdue? I think it is. Are all the signs pointing to Jesus coming back? Yes, I think it is. And you know what? Here's the thing. We don't need to be afraid of what is about to happen, because I'm going to show you what it looks like. The rapture or the catching up of the church is a very personal event. It's a very personal happening between God and His church. Now, the world just so happens will be rocked because of it. So if you're part of the church, you say, how do I become part of the church? Not just coming in and sitting. Not just coming in and being here and present and being present and clocking in. If you're part of the church, it's part of the body of Christ. It's I have asked Him into my heart. I have asked Him to forgive me of my sins. That's being part of the church. The rapture is a very personal happening between God and only His church. Everyone else will just be left out, and God can't help that, because the righteousness that He requires is the righteousness that His righteousness requires Him to require. So He can't just lower His standards because He likes good old Joe. It doesn't work that way. So, 3 days. 3 days out of all the days God has given us. And here are those 3 days. Those days, these days, and the day. Those days, these days, and the day. So let's go to Luke chapter 17. And let's look at verses 26 through 31. We're going to read this. We're going to pull out these 3 days from these scriptures. Just as it was in those days of Noah, it will be in these days of the Son of Man. They were eating, they were drinking. I want you to realize what's going on in verse 7 and 27. They were eating, they were drinking. Hey, they were having a good time. They were marrying. Do you realize we got a wedding today? Two of our servants in this house that are they working this morning at Smithfield? They're working, helping lead worship at Smithfield. And then they're going to go and they're going to get hitched up. And we're going to be there to make sure. We're going to be a witness of it. So they were eating, they were drinking, they were marrying. You know what this says? They had life. Life was going on. Life was normal. They were being given in marriage in the day when Noah, up until the day Noah entered the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all. Now, likewise, we have another happening. Just as it was in those days of Lot, they were eating and drinking. Kind of breaks it down, gives you a few more things that they were doing. They were buying and selling. This means they had an economy. This means that life was good. They were buying and selling. They were the commerce. They were planting. You don't plant a garden if you think that you're not going to be here tomorrow. They were planting, so they just were going about their business. Who builds a house that never lives in it? There's a few people that do, but who in their right mind would do that? They were having a good time. They were having supper. So things were going as normal, verse 29. But on the day when Lot went out of Sodom, fire and sulfur rained from heaven and destroyed them all. So it's going to be like that when on the day when the Son of Man is revealed. So it's going to be like that. So the rapture of the church, we talked about that. That is the catching up. Now, you say, well, you know what? What if I die before the rapture? You know what? You are still, what's important and what matters is to become intimate with the Lord, become part of His church so we can be caught up with Him, 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, to meet Him in the air. So remember, He's not touching the ground, we're meeting Him in the air. So 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 tells us that we will be called up. So you say, well, what if I do all this and I die? The dead in Christ are going to rise first. So you're still in the church. You're still, if you have given your heart to the Lord and you have died, you are still going, you're going to beat me in the air. If I'm not dead and gone by that time, you're going to beat me up there. So, hey, It doesn't matter. All that matters is getting on the team. So, the rapture of the church is coming, and it's very personal. It's a personal event. God has made sure that it is a personal event. What groom would not do everything for his bride? Jesus is the bridegroom. The church, we are the bride of Christ. And if we are ready, then He will do everything in His power to make sure that we are exempt from the wrath, which is the tribulation. So, we are in birth pains right now. Remember, we read last week, it's like birth pains. This is why I think Jesus used birth pains as a description, because when a baby starts to come into this world, you can't say, I'm not ready. You can't say, you can't just say, look, I don't want to do this. You can't say, hey, doc, here, I've had a change of heart. The pants don't fit. I want to return them. It don't work that way. When the birth pains start, nothing's going to stop it. So where are we on the scale of this last 2,000 year happening? We looked last week at the signs, and the signs point. Every time we look, the signs point that everything is ready. Everything is ready. So I'm not taking any chances. I don't know about you. So when the time comes, it will be like those days. See, it will be like those days, according to Luke chapter 17. The days when that next 2,000 year happening comes, it will be like those days. Those days are signs for these days. So those days are indicators for us to watch for in these days. These are two of the most important days that we will ever focus on, are those days. And what was going on in those days? Normality. People were getting married. People were having a good time. They were planning. They were building. We are building at an enormous rate in the world at this point in time. Cities are being built faster than we could ever even imagine. There are more cranes in downtown Nashville than there are buildings, I believe. There is a mass building project going on in the world today. People are building. They're going about, they're making plans. God says plans will be made. Everything's going to go about its normality. You know what? Signs to watch for. Those days are signs to watch for that are indicators for what to watch for in these days. And they match up with these days, as it was in the days of Noah, as it was in the days of Lot. So shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man. He called Himself the Son of Man. So that's Jesus. So people were eating and they were drinking. They were having supper. There was an economy. They were buying. They were selling. They were picking out new motorcycles. They were, all kinds of good stuff. Getting tires for their bikes. Going on trips, having fun, sitting at the beach. They know who they are. Planting and building. They were just having life as normal. The coming of the Son of Man, the rapture of the church is what the next thing that is going to happen. So, and when that happens, life will be normal. So you could say, well, how can we watch for this? You can't watch for something that you don't know that's going to happen. So you can't wait and say, I'm going to wait until the last minute, and then I'm going to figure out the movie, and then I'm going to give my heart to the Lord then. So it don't work that way. So we don't know how this works. We don't know exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. We have a pretty good indicator according to the Word. See, when that happens, life's going to be normal. People making plans, all that stuff. Jesus compared those days to these days. Now, this is not a series of events. Now, I want to be very clear. This is not a series of events. The signs are a series of events. But the happening, the catching up, the rapture of the church is not going to be a series of events. We're not going to have a few happen here and a few happen there and this a little bit and this a little bit. I'm going to show you. Let's look at verse 26. Those days will be like these days. So in verse 26, those days will be like these days. So when we move to verse 27, when the day came. Now I want you to notice something. Those days in verse 26, looking at these days in verse 26. Now we go to verse 27, and we're talking about them giving in marriage and all this stuff in Noah. But I want you to notice something very specific that stands out in verse 27. They were given in marriage and having marrying and having weddings and all that stuff, vacations and funerals. All that was going on until the day. See, not a series of events, the day when Noah entered the ark. When Noah entered the ark, he entered the ark on the day. So those days prepare us to watch in these days for the day. Because the day is the day that we are, it's the birth at that point. Those are birth pains. We can't stop the birth pains. And when the day comes, forget it. You're not going to be able to jump on the boat. You can't jump on the boat when it's too late. So he says the day. When Noah entered the ark, it was one specific day in history. One day, not a series of days. One day. Let's look at verse 28. Going to show you this, breaking it down again with Lot. Going to Lot, we find Lot. Lot says, these days, it will be like those days. Those days are like these days when Lot lived in Sodom. The place was corrupt. I mean, it was very corrupt. To the point to where there was almost an argument. I don't want to call it an argument. I want to call it a respectful rebuttal between Abraham and the Lord about not destroying the city for the sake of his nephew. So if you find 100 righteous, and then he just keeps on and keeps on, and God says, look, Abraham, you found favor. So I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to destroy this city. And if I find favor in Lot, I'm going to save him. So the city was corrupt. The place was corrupt, overrun with sin. I'm almost thinking that we're really close to that now. So in verse 29, I want you to notice what it says on the day. On the day. Not just a day, not just those days, because those days, just like it was in Noah, is the same as it was in Lot. Those days point to these days to watch for the day. The day is coming. It was just like the day when Lot went out of Sodom. And let me just explain. We talked about this Monday night, Tina and I. Lot was dragging his feet. And you say, well, are we going to get caught up in the tribulation? No, we're not going to the church is not going to get caught up in the tribulation, because I'm going to show you why. Because Lot had to be dragged out of that place. God said, the angel said, I cannot place judgment. I cannot judge this place until you are gone and out of here. So until you're out of here, I can't do anything. Because of you are my bride, and I'm not going to do this to my bride. And he says, you got to hurry up, Lot. Hurry up. Now, if you are married, you know what that term means. Hurry up. Let's go. Hurry up. Put your makeup on. The third time. Let's go. So, hurry up, Lot, until they grabbed them by the hand and dragged them out and threw them outside and shut the gate behind them and said, now go to the hills and don't look back. I can't judge this place until you are safely out of here. So are we going to get caught up in the tribulation? The church won't. Well, Noah got caught up in the wrath of the flood. No, he didn't. God rose him above it. God rose him above it, and God removed Lot away from it. His church, he will move away from the wrath that is to come. The wrath being, we don't know wrath. We don't know this kind of wrath. So, verse 29 says, the day. So we have a specific day in history. It's one day. One day when Lot went out of Sodom. One day when Noah was shut up in the ark. God removed his people from destruction. He removed them from wrath. He separated them from the fire. And he rose them above the flood. So, he rescued his people from the day of destruction. So, what is it saying to us today? God found Lot righteous. The word says that God found Lot righteous. That means he's worthy of saving. God found him to be righteous, and he wouldn't judge the entirety until he removed the ones that were righteous. So God's going to remove the ones that are righteous. So we're going to look at that in just a second. He found favor in Noah. God even said, it just kind of narrates and says, God was just even mad and bothered that He even created man. It was that bad. God was at the point to where He wished He'd have never even created man. I'm going to wipe them off the face of the earth, and I'm going to start over if I have to. And He found favor in Noah. I found someone that I can restart with. I found someone that I have favor with. So, we're in a corrupt environment today. We're surrounded by sin today. We're surrounded by it. Good luck. Good luck on the news. Good luck watching it. So, and then one day in history, just like they were surrounded by sin, just like they were surrounded by a corrupt environment, one day in history came and it was too late for everybody else. It was too late. So, verse 30. I want to show you something in verse 30. So it will be on the day. Now, this is the way it's going to be. The Lord says, He says it's going to be this way in the days of Noah, as it was in the days of Noah, as it was in the days of Lot. He says, so it will be on the day. On the day when Jesus returns. On the specific day when Jesus returns. He's not talking about multiple days. He talked about those days, and then the specific day the ark door was shut for Noah. And Lot for those days, and then the specific day when Lot went out of Sodom. Now He's saying it's going to be like that on the day when Jesus returns. A singular day, a one day in history, a day that will shake the world. A day that will break through the business as usual. All of a sudden, boom, it's messed up. A day when sin is normal. A day when sin is actually promoted. A day that's happening. It will be like that day. But it's going to be the day. And He's saying the day's coming. He didn't say it was going to come in multiple days. He said the day is coming. So, let me show you something. Let me show you something concerning the day. I want to break this down. Verse 31. Verse 31, He says, on that day, on that specific day, on the day, let the one who is on the housetop with his goods in the house not come down to take them away, and likewise let one who is in the field not turn back. I want to show you what this looks like in Matthew chapter 24. Matthew chapter 24, if you're making notes, I don't think it's up here, verses 40 and 41. Matthew chapter 24, verses 40 and 41, 2 will be in the field, 1 will be taken, 1 will be left. So this is what it says. This is what's going to happen. 1 will be taken and 1 will be left. Just like that. A pastor friend of ours, long since retired, would always say, it will happen quicker than you can think a thought. So, 2 will be in the field, 1 will be taken, 1 will be left. Verse 41, 2 women will be grinding or working. They'll be at their cubicles or whatever. 1 will be taken and 1 will be left. Just that fast. Verse 31 says we will have people who are just going about normality, going about business as usual. 1 will be taken, 1 will be left. See, the first words, on that day. On that day. I want you to look at verses 34 and 35 with me. Now, I want to show you something. Now, you notice that it says in that day, or on that day, something happens. On that day, the rapture occurs. On that day, the church is taken out away from what is about to happen. And then in verse 34, He says, I tell you, in that night, there will be 2 in bed. There's going to be 2 people in bed in night. One's going to be laying there. One's all of a sudden going to be taken, the other left. So you say, how will that happen? Well, you have a husband and wife. One's a believer. He believes in the Lord. And she won't have anything about it. All of a sudden, she looks over. He's not there anymore. He's not reading his book. His glasses are laying on his pillow, and he's evaporated out of his clothing. He's gone completely. 1 will be taken and 1 will be left. Let's look at verse 35. There will be 2 women grinding together. So they're talking about grinding together, just as it did in Matthew chapter 24. 1 will be taken and the other will be left. So I want you to notice something. Then it says in that day earlier, and then it says in that night. So does Jesus return at day or at night? See, we have this image because, that song, Midnight Cry, all that stuff, like a thief in the night. We have this image in our minds that God is going to return at night. So, here's the thing. He says, on that day when I return. And then he also says, in that night when I return. So how can he return at day and night and it still be one day and one event? See, this one is going to be a universal event. This is going to be a global happening. It will be a single instance in history. It will shake the earth. And at any given moment, I'm going to explain to you, and you already know where I'm going. At any given moment in this world today, there is half of our earth that is in sunlight and half of our earth that is in darkness. Half of our earth is, well, we're a little bit more than half right now, but half of our earth, somewhere it is nighttime. And somewhere it is daytime. I want to explain to you how Jesus knew this. Jesus created the earth. He created the solar system. He created earth to revolve around the sun. He knew this was going to happen. 2,000 years ago, they didn't know this. They thought that Rome was the center of the universe. They didn't know. For all they knew, the earth was flat. They didn't know that half the earth is going to be in darkness. And half the earth is going to be light. See, I don't know if you know this, but we have spring equinox and a fall equinox. Those terms means equal. That means at spring and at fall, the days and the nights are equal times. They're exactly the same length. And at the summer and the winter solstice, the summer solstice, the day is the longest that it will be. And at the winter solstice, the day is the shortest that it will be. So it doesn't matter if it's short or if it's long. Somebody's going to be in darkness. So this is a universal event that won't just happen in Jerusalem. It won't just happen in the Middle East. It will happen globally, all over the earth, simultaneously, at the same time. Jesus knew this, and they couldn't figure this out. We see it now. We know this now. A day is coming, and we will be caught up. The church will be caught up to meet Jesus in the air. Now, I want to challenge you with a thinking here. I am going to challenge you to know the Lord, because it is so very important that this day that is coming, the specific day that will be global, that will shake the earth, and you say, well, I'm not sure if I'm ready to serve the Lord. I'm not sure that you're ready to stay around in tribulation. I'm going to tell you what my father-in-law would always say to these girls when they were little. If you can't live now, if you can't serve the Lord now, you're not going to be able to do it then. And see, here's the thing. One of those horsemen will completely kill a quarter of the population in tribulation, a quarter of the population of the earth. 3 plagues will kill a third of the population that's left. The Antichrist will martyr and kill millions of Christians, people who come to the Lord after that. People will die. The earth will be burned up. It's not going to be somewhere we want to be. I can't stress that enough. We can't. If you serve the Lord, you will be tortured. I'm not trying to paint a pretty picture here. The only way to do this is to do it the right way, the way Jesus intended it to be. We need to get our wings to fly. That's what we need to do. We don't become angels. That's not when somebody says, "Well, so and so died, they got their wings." They may get wings I'll explain that. They may get wings when if they're part of the church and their bodies are risen to meet Jesus in the air, because they got to go from here to there. But we're not going to turn into angels. I'm sorry. So God never designed you for tribulation. He never designed you to go through tribulation. He designed you for righteousness. That's exactly what He designed you and I for, not for tribulation. He didn't design us for that. We're not built for tribulation. We're not built to be here. Our bodies are not made of steel. We're not impermeable to fire and all these kinds of things. They shoot us, we'll die. So righteousness is what is required to be in the church with our hearts. So righteousness is what is required, and that comes from Christ. It is what qualifies us to get our flying permit. That's what qualifies us to be able to meet Him in the air. So you say, well, I'm not sure. I may die before the rapture happens. You still got to meet Him in the air. There's a guy that I know. I remember he said back in the 90s, he said, when I die, I want them to cremate me, take my ashes, mix it in cement, and pour a slab. And I want them to know that if they ever wonder if the rapture has happened, my kids or if anybody, go to my house. If that slab's busted, you know it's happened. So our job is to meet Him in the air. So when the rapture happens on that day, we're flying to meet Him. We're flying to meet Him. We're going to meet Him. You know, the Bible says where the eagles gather, where the vultures gather in some translations. That's where it's going to happen. Not on the ground. We're going to get our flying permit. See, just okay is not just okay when it's our soul. It's not just okay. See, God never gives us an option of laziness. He's given us lots of options in life. He never gives us an option of laziness. That's not one of them. He never gives us an option of indifference. He never gives us an option of waiting until it's too late. Now, sometimes we have to wait upon the Lord, but He never gives us an option of waiting too late. He calls us in John chapter 15. John chapter 15 is a chapter that is pretty much some of the last words Jesus ever speaks in the flesh to the people closest to Him. I call it the Jesus walk from the table to the garden. I call it the Jesus walk. He's pouring into them. And what does He say to them? One of those, and a very big part of that, was being prepared, preparedness. Be prepared. Don't take this one life God has given us and waste it. Don't take this one life that God has poured into and just use it up and not use it for Him. He will always call us to be prepared. Always call us to be prepared. So I'm asking, hey guys, you were doing this and you stopped on us and you watched us, and I appreciate it. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for spending some time with us. I pray that you enjoyed the service today. Let me take this opportunity to invite you out personally. We're located on the square in Sparta. Our service times are at 9 and 11 every Sunday morning. We'll meet you at the door with a hug. We'll meet you at the door with some coffee ready and some donuts if you want. And let me just take a real quick minute to invite you over to our Smithville campus. For those of you who can't drive over to Sparta, drive over to Smithville, 11 o'clock for now, at 614 Murphy Street in Smithville, Tennessee. So one of our campuses, Christpoint Church, we're real people, we're living real lives, and we're serving a real God. Welcome home.